Hey, what's up guys? So today I got double boss monster decks in action as well as the deck profile for you guys. So if you guys want to build these decks, I'll give you guys the profile to make them yourself. But anyways, the new Ancient Gear Chaos card is actually pretty good. It's immune to a lot of different things. Immune to spells, traps, and during the battle phase, your opponent isn't going to be able to do too much with their monsters. But anyways, we now see the Hunting Ground summon. It's going to activate its effect and be able to just go for a fusion. Here's the boss monster. Basically, if you bust this out, you can win. And what's cool with both of these decks that I'm going to be giving you guys, they do not require Link Summons. I've seen you guys complain, I don't want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! No more because of Link Summon. These are both decks that won't require Link Summons at all to get going. Now, unfortunately, his opponent probably can't make Utopia. Not that it really matters too much because this card has a really awesome effect. No one really talking about Ancient Gear Chaos Giant. It is kind of hard to pull off for some players, but if you're good, you guys can see he just pulled it out really fast, and it's got 4,500 attack, unaffected by spells, unaffected by traps, unaffected by your opponent's monster. Well, your opponent can't activate their effects during the battle phase, which is actually really nice. Now, obviously, he can be bounced back via some other cards, but still, he's a pretty boss monster that can absolutely just make people just scoop it up. So, Yu-Gi-Oh! Player 95, very good deck over here. If you guys want the deck profile, I'll give it to you guys in a second. But I also want to showcase off another deck that's similar in playstyle, which is Raid Raptors. Now, they definitely can bust out a boss monster that can do some work. And it's a really decent little duel over here between a 6 Samurai player. He's going to go for a first turn Shien, and then he's going to go ahead and exceed to Rafflesia. Pretty nasty board for a lot of different decks to deal with. I know someone going to be like, well, what if you have Kaiju with you? Yeah, okay, Kaiju beat everything, man. Alright, we see the 4-Strike summon. Unfortunately, that gets bounced back with the Time-Space Trap Hole. And then we still have the rank up for the Raid Raptor. So obviously, he's got double Shien and on board, and he's got a Rafflesia, so that can be very difficult. That's almost a win condition, unless you got the Winged Dragon Raw Sphere mode. If only he played it, man. If only. But nonetheless, he's going to go ahead and go for some Raid Raptor plays. And again, Raid Raptors is another boss deck that does not require Link summoning at all. They usually want to focus on getting one boss monster and just make it so your opponent wants to quit. So we have Raid Raptor, Final Fortress, Falcon over here, and he clears his board. His opponent rips a top deck instant fusion. Wow, what a sack. He coming back with that Utopia, but the Raid Raptor does have a trick up its sleeve with one of the rank up cards. Anyways, he's going to go ahead and get over the boss monster, Final Fortress Falcon, which is actually a newer card. But anyways, it requires 3 levels, right? You ain't going to make it with 3 level 12s, okay? Let's be honest here. You're going to go rank up real quick into it. Anyways, it's unaffected by other card effects, so it's pretty much got that boss monster effect. And then on top of that, once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, and you get to return all of your banished Raid Raptors to the graveyard, and then up to twice per turn when this card attacks a monster, destroys a monster by battle. You can bash a Raid Raptor, you can attack again, and you can activate that effect twice. Really good stuff. He was able to come back because he was able to banish the card and just bring out the card for free again. That is a really good effect. I've never seen that. Maybe that's news to me, but that was pretty cool. And I know that this is a newer card, and people that are interested in Link Summons and want to play a boss monster deck, this is definitely a boss monster deck that requires no Link Summons. Because I know with the whole Quasar thing, it becomes a little complicated, and you guys are like, too confusing. I totally understand. But let me give you guys the deck profile for both of these decks right now. So let's go to deck edit, and here's the first deck. This is the one over here that you guys just saw by Yu-Gi-Oh! Player 95. But anyways, we got triple Ancient Gear Reactor Dragons. Now, if it's distributed by Ancient Gear, it gets to do piercing, and then if it's distributed by using a gadget. Before you guys say, hey, there's no gadgets in here, you're wrong. Alright, but anyways, if it's using a gadget, it can make a second attack. And then if it attacks, your opponent can't activate any spell or traps. And then also monsters your opponent's possession can't activate their effects. A lot of them actually have that, so I'm not going to go over that effect on each one of these monsters. But most of them have that effect where, like, your opponent can't activate any spell or traps until the end of the damage step, or monster effects. And then, but this card has another effect. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacked, you get to destroy one spell trap card on the field. Oh, if you destroy your own gear talent, there you guys go. You're going to get a free extra monster. You can do a lot of damage with that. But next up, after the 3 copies of Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon, next up we got the Ancient Gear Golem. So again, it's pretty much one of the same effects. Now, however, this one It does piercing, but your opponent can't activate any spell or traps. Your opponent can still activate monster effects, so I don't really like him that much. But he's still a big beater, so he works for that. Next up, we got one of the newer cards. This is Mechanized Melee. So it can't be special summoned, but it gets to do piercing. And then twice per turn, when this card, attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can discard a machine type and it can attack again. But it has another awesome effect, which is if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or a card effect, you get to add a Polymerization from your deck to your hand and one other Ancient Gear monster. So you're going to go +2 when the card dies. That's a pretty cool effect. Obviously, if you discard the card, then you'll hopefully going for game. It's got a lot of attack. Next up, we have 3 copies of Ancient Gear Wyvern. So what's normal or special, you get to add an Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand. You can't set cards for the rest of the turn, but if it attacks, your opponent can't activate monster effects until the end of the damage step. Next up, see, I told you guys we had a gadget in here. So this is Ancient Gear Gadget. So this card is normal or special. You can declare 1 card type, monster, spell, or trap. This turn, if a monster you control attacks, your opponent's cards and effects of that type cannot be activated until the end of the damage step. And then once per turn, you can declare the name of 1 gadget monster. It becomes kind of irrelevant for the most part, to my knowledge. There is one that like has a different effects depending on what color gadget, but it's not in here. I believe it's the old gadget, Gigiltron Dragon card. It gets like different effects depending on what color. But it doesn't. I wish it like send the card to the graveyard. It's something a little bit more. I don't know. Not really too much of a fan of this guy, but it does have a little bit of potential, depending on what other support we could potentially get in the future too. But he's running 3 copies of him, 2 copies of Gearbox. So if this card is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you get to add a Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack and or defense from your deck to your hand. Except for itself, you can only use this effect once per turn. And then we have 3 copies of Hunting Hound. So if this card is normal summon, you get to just burn your opponent for 600 damage. And if it attacks your opponent, can't activate any spells or traps. And then once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 Ancient Gear fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. You guys saw that during the little replay there. And then we got 2 copies of Overload Fusion. And then we got 2 copies of Polymerization, 2 Power Bond, which is like another follow-up OTK-ish kind of a card. Then we got Ancient Gear Catapult. So if you control the monster, you get to target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it, and then you get to special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. And there you guys go. That's pretty much its main effect. And then, in addition to that, then you get to target 1 face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, you get a token. Not too bad at all. And then you can only use this effect once per turn, and only once that turn. And then we have Ancient Gear Workshop, so you get to target an Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Terraform for the field spell. And then we have 3 copies of Ancient Gear Fortress. So Ancient Gear monsters you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects during the turn. They are normal or special, which is a really good effect. Or effects in response to their activation. So basically, it's got like boss monster, a mountain bound crater, like basically. And then if this card in the spell and trap zone is destroyed, you get to special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard. Also, you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for Ancient Gears, but that's pretty much the whole deck anyways, unless you make in some of these other obscure cards, which you usually don't make, but it's good to have access to them. And we have 3 copies of Gear Town, so both players can normal summon Ancient Gear monsters with 1 less tribute. And then when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. It's a pretty good effect over there. And Mausoleum, you can pay life points to summon it. A really old school card. And then we have one of the Quaking Mirror Forces. I think it'd be better if you guys put in some of the Solemns. However, or like D-Barriers would also be a really good card. However, I understand that this is probably more oriented for budget players anyways, so I'll go ahead and just recommend like, Wind Blast or, things of that nature. I'm sure a lot of you guys have like, I don't know, Bottomless isn't too hot right now, but, Solemn Warning, that's still a pretty easy card to obtain. So definitely try out that card as well. He's got 2 Wind Blasts, 1 Ancient Gear Reborn. This is actually another new card. So once per turn you control no monsters, target an Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do it gains 200 attack, even if this card leaves the field, you can only control 1 of them. And then we got an old school Call of the Haunted over here. Then we got 3 copies of Ancient Gear Chaos Drag, because you're going to be busting out this guy and basically saying, I win the game. And then your opponent's going to make Utopia, and then they're going to be like, oh, whoa. Unaffected by spell and trap cards, and then your opponents can't even activate their effects during the battle phase. And then we got Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, 3 copies of Ancient Gear Devil, 1 Enterprise Near, 2 Geargant X, 1 Back the Cook or Crooked Cook. And then we got the Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf, we got Castell, Dire Wolf, and Evil Swarm Nightmare. That's it for the first deck. Now I want to showcase off the second deck from Teriyaki. This is a deck to just bust out the new Final Fortress Falcon. I feel like every Raid Raptor deck can be really good now with Lord of Darkness. The consistency can be pretty good. But anyways, let's go and jump right into it. So first off, 3 copies of Tribute Lanius, 3 copies of Vanishing, 3 copies of Mimicry, 3 copies of Fuzzy, 1 copy of Singing, 3 copies of Pain, 3 copies of Last Strix. All it really comes down to in the monsters is just throw them out there, start ranking them up. Then we got triple copies of Allure. We got 1 for 1, 3 copies of Rank Up Magic Astral Force, 3 copies of Skip Force, 1 Upstart, 2 copies of Left Arm Offering, 2 copies of Twin Twister, 3 copies of Ness, 3 copies of Gus. So when a spell and trap card is activated while you control Raid Raptor, negated. I don't know how I feel about this card because I feel like majority of the time when they're going to get rid of the Raid Raptors, it's with the Utopia to detach. So I think that you can make a lot of good use out of maybe perhaps another card, but it does have potential if you go for that defensive play really early on. If anything, you need to stop Kaijus. But I know that it's kind of difficult to stop those. But as far as the extra deck, we got 1 7 Sins, double of the new card Final Fortress Falcon, triple copies of Ultimate, double copies of Satellite, 2 copies of Arsenal, 1 copy of Revolution, 1 copy of what's this is a newer card. This is Revolution Falcon Air Raid, and then we have Revolution Falcon is the OG one, and then we got of course 4 Shrix to search out for some extra cards. But those are the double boss monster deck profiles for you guys that maybe don't like Link's Summoning. Try out these. Let me know if you guys have either suggestions for either one of the decks, whether it be the Raid Raptor one. Like I said, I feel like this is just not personally a card that I would really like because I don't feel like Raid Raptors lose to this. I definitely think of adding like Max C against some dimensional barriers can be definitely really good because, like, again, the out to this deck is usually Utopia, but if you go ahead and say no to Utopia, you know, that one time you de-barrier when they go ahead and go for it. Maybe you let them make a Utopia or something because it's unaffected by other card effects. Wait, does Utopia? I think Utopia negates that specific attack. But you guys get the point. Like, if they can't make Utopia, a lot of decks, that's like their only out. And de-barrier, you can just, they MST chain it. A really good card. But anyways, thanks for both of you guys, Teriyaki and Yu-Gi-Oh! Player 95, for both of those decks. Very, very cool stuff to see some people still wanting to play these decks in 2017. Because I remember when the towers got hit, I was like, well, that was one of the best boss monsters. But there's still really good boss monsters in the game. But thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the vid, make sure you guys give that like button a slap a Reno. And hit that subscribe button for more Yu-Gi-Oh! videos.